Five Nights at Freddy's is a series widely known for its vast and confusing lore. While most FNAF content creators try to piece together an entire timeline, I thought I'd focus on the modern storyline that started in 2019 with the release of the VR game Help Wanted. While it has some rough spots, the modern storyline is overall much more comprehensible, so I wanted to focus more on those installments. In this video, I'll be doing an overlook at all the important events in the newer Five Nights at Freddy's storyline. There's a lot of opinions over Five Nights at Freddy's story, so I understand that not everyone will agree with me. I'll do my best to stick to facts and things that are strongly implied, but there's only so much you can do. I only ask that everyone be civil in the comments. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. One of the earliest events in the modern FNAF story is the Mimic's origins. The Tales from the Pizzaplex story, The Mimic, shed some light on his creation. The story focuses on Edwin Murray, a robotics engineer. Edwin's wife Fiona died during childbirth, leaving him with his son David. Edwin and David moved into the factory that Edwin owned, and eventually had to sell his company to Fazbear Entertainment. After that, Edwin worked on their animatronic projects. To keep David entertained while he worked, Edwin created the Mimic 1 program, an AI that would copy whatever David did. Edwin then made the Mimic Endo out of scrap from around the factory. This early version of the Mimic Endo is different from the one we see in the games. It had pincher-like fingers, novelty chattering teeth, and no legs. David quickly befriended the Mimic, and eventually learned to respond to David rather than just copy him. So it's clear that the Mimic has some sentience. It isn't just mindlessly copying what it observes. One interesting thing that the Mimic copies is the way David curves his arm when he hugs his tiger plushie to his chest. Speaking of which, David loves white tigers. Both of these details will be pretty important later on. When Edwin is working on animatronic projects, the Mimic and David dress up in some of the Fazbear Entertainment costumes, and this action will stick with the Mimic. One day, David goes outside the factory to play. He chases his red bouncy ball into the road, where he's tragically hit by a car and killed. When Edwin is grieving, the Mimic approaches him and signals David's code for ice cream. Seeing this is too much for Edwin to handle, he unleashes all of his built-up rage by repeatedly beating the Mimic with a metal rod. All of Edwin's murderous thoughts are poured into the Mimic's programming. Edwin leaves the factory and it becomes Fazbear Entertainment's property, and they send a team to retrieve his animatronic projects. The team starts repairing the factory, and eventually they find the Mimic. They give it legs from another endoskeleton and reactivate it. Now infected with Edwin's agony, the Mimic murders the team by copying actions from Edwin and David. Fazbear Entertainment sends another team, but they're also murdered by the Mimic, who now wears some of the mascot costumes like the Mushroom Man and the Jester. This is a reference to how he previously wore a costume with David. Sometime after the events of the story, Fazbear Entertainment manages to retrieve the Mimic. They then made a line of Mimic Endos, which were designed to observe animatronic performances and copy them. That way the animatronics didn't need performance routines programmed in. Instead they could just copy what they saw. On top of that, the Mimic Endos had retractable and expandable limbs, and a contracting torso, allowing them to fit into any mascot costume. As expected, something went very wrong. It seems like the Mimic Endos began copying people in unintended ways, and this resulted in the Endos being deactivated. The upcoming game, Seeker of the Mimic, seems to take place in 1979. In the spirit of keeping this video based on facts or things that are strongly implied, I won't be discussing this game since it isn't out yet. However, I did make a speculation video if you want to check that out. Fazbear Entertainment created a cartoon called Freddy and Friends on Tour, starring Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. It's never said when this cartoon aired, but I assume it was sometime in the 80s, since that's around when the Freddy's locations opened. I only mention this cartoon because it's a recurring aspect in the newer games. Years later, after the events of the original games, Fazbear Entertainment is a broken company. To rebrand themselves, they hired an indie game developer to make games based on the real events in the series. In the Tales from the Pizzaplex story, Help Wanted, it's revealed that the indie game developer was named Steve Snodgrass. Steve is a struggling indie game developer working on family-friendly games, similar to Scott Cawthon, the real-life creator of Five Nights at Freddy's. Steve was approached by Brock Edwards, a talent acquisition from Fazbear Entertainment. Brock says that due to all the stories about murders and hauntings, Fazbear Entertainment needs a rebrand. He asked Steve to develop a set of 4 horror games to poke fun at the stories surrounding Fazbear Entertainment. And let me remind you, despite Brock saying these stories are lies, they're still all real. Everything we've seen in the original games is still canon. Despite the opportunity Brock has presented, Steve turns him down. Instead of just moving on like any other company would, Fazbear Entertainment creates a fake account on Steve's dating app and lures him to a house, where they use illusion discs to warp his surroundings, making him believe that he now has a family with the house being foreclosed on. Convenient timing for Brock to return and tell Steve that Fazbear Entertainment's offer still stands. Steve accepts and begins working on the games. He keeps experiencing night terrors in his house, which he uses as inspiration for the games. After completing the third Fazbear Entertainment indie game, Steve experiences more night terrors and there's an intense ringing. He destroys a smoke alarm to try to stop the ringing, and once he does, it's revealed that his wife and kids were robots the whole time, and he sees marks and trapdoors where monsters attacked him during his night terrors. Steve's new life was a simulation, created to convince him to make the games, and those night terrors were made by Fazbear Entertainment to inspire Steve while he worked on the games. His robot family begins searching for him, and the voice on the radio, DJ Dan the Music Man, begins directly talking to Steve. DJ Dan reminds him of how much his life sucked before this, and tells him that everything he felt for his wife and kids was real. He just needs to let himself be happy. He convinces Steve to press the button on the side of the radio, and everything returns to normal. Steve sees his fake wife again, and they kiss as Steve is repeatedly stabbed in the heart. After all that, the indie games didn't work. They backfired and tarnished Fazbear's reputation even further. To fix this, they decided to double down and develop a VR game making fun of the indie games to make them seem less credible. Something interesting to note is that the VR game only has categories for Five Nights at Freddy's 1, 2, and 3, matching up with how Steve only made 3 games before he was killed. There's still other categories featuring Five Nights at Freddy's 4 and Sister Location, but those games aren't specifically named, unlike the first 3 Five Nights at Freddy's installments. To speed up development, Fazbear Entertainment sent the company vintage circuit boards, which could be scanned into the game to recreate past performances and personalities.
Using proprietary technology developed by Fazbear Entertainment, our VR development teams were able to use vintage control boards almost like plug and play, digitally recreating performances and personalities from the past in an instant.
When scanning these, a malicious code known as Glitchtrap was unleashed into the game. There's been a lot of debate about what exactly Glitchtrap is. The circuit boards scanned into Help Wanted were used to create past personalities. I think they ended up recreating William Afton's personality. I don't think Glitchtrap is supposed to be the real William Afton. No matter how you slice it, he's gone. In Ultimate Custom Night, he's in purgatory. Or if you believe Fazbear's frights are canon, he's trapped in a nightmare and is later killed by the puppet. I do, however, think that Glitchtrap was created from the Mimic 1 program, because he shares a lot of traits with the Mimic. Later on in Tales from the Pizzaplex, it's said that the Mimic 1 program is compatible with VR, AR, and arcades. Across the series, we see Glitchtrap appear in all these platforms. In the story, Tiger Rock, the Mimic 1 program manifests in a VR simulation as a digital entity, similar to Glitchtrap. That being said, I don't think Glitchtrap is the Mimic. They act pretty differently, with Glitchtrap relying on manipulation, while the Mimic kills people himself. When the Mimic chooses forms in Tales from the Pizzaplex, he chooses to appear as a white tiger, not a yellow rabbit like Glitchtrap. So while he isn't the Mimic himself, I think he was created from the same AI program. It's often speculated that the circuit boards used for the VR game were from the Mimic Endos. They were trained to copy performances, and the circuit boards in Help Wanted were used to recreate performances and personalities, which the Mimic Endos would have seen. I believe that the Mimic 1 AI was used to program the VR game, and it created Glitchtrap, hence why he has so many similarities to the Mimic. It's because he's using the same AI program, but this branch or version of the Mimic 1 AI is replicating Afton, unlike the default Mimic, which is his own character. It's also worth noting that this wouldn't be the first time we've seen a manifestation of Afton's memory. Into the Pit's main villain, Yellow Thing, is strongly implied to be a monster born from the agony of Afton's murders. Glitchtrap was first noticed by the game's beta tester, Jeremy, which I think is like the 3rd Jeremy in the series. There's a lot of those guys. He later complained about night terrors, possibly due to an encounter with Glitchtrap. The company planned on firing Jeremy since he clearly saw something he shouldn't have. Before he could be fired, Jeremy was found after he injured himself with a paper guillotine. It's debated whether or not Jeremy died from this. It's mentioned that there was something that looked like black ink on the floor and a Halloween mask. Some people think that this is Jeremy's blood and face that he cut off with the paper guillotine. Others believe the mask is an actual mask, maybe one from the Curse of Dreadbear DLC, which we'll get to later. Anyways, after this, another employee at the company known as Tape Girl replaced Jeremy. She was given a couple of days to finish Jeremy's work before the game was handed over to another company. She also encountered Glitchtrap and left recordings in the game detailing the troubled development. On Tape Girl's last day of development, she couldn't find Glitchtrap in the game, and she realized that he had attached himself to her recordings. She fragmented the recordings, which also fragmented Glitchtrap, but she wasn't able to delete the tapes entirely. They remained scattered throughout the game. The game was soon handed over to another studio, and Vanessa started beta testing it. She's a pretty important character in the series, and while her backstory isn't explained until Security Breach, I think it just makes the most sense to explain it now. When Vanessa was younger, her parents were having a divorce, and during the custody battle, her dad, Bill, manipulated her into saying some bad things about her mom in court. Vanessa's mom lost custody of her, and it's implied she killed herself afterwards. Some people think that Vanessa's dad might be William Afton. since Bill's the nickname for William, and in the movie adaptation, Vanessa is revealed to be William's daughter. Nothing has been confirmed yet, but it's pretty interesting. Back to Help Wanted, Vanessa finds Tape Girl's fragmented tapes while playing the game, and collecting them starts to reassemble Glitchtrap. He appears in the main hub, and with each tape collected, he'll become clearer and get closer to Vanessa. In the game's final level, Pizza Party, Vanessa has to follow instructions from a yellow rabbit plush to reach a birthday party. This is a pretty obvious recreation of the missing children's incident, where William Afton wore the yellow rabbit suit and lured children to the safe room where he killed them. This level ends in pretty much the same way. Vanessa reaches the party room where she encounters Glitchtrap. After following him, Vanessa takes Freddy's place on stage, seemingly as a representation of how Afton killed Gabriel and stuffed him in Freddy Fazbear. Glitchtrap dances around the lobby as the credits roll. However, the game doesn't end here. When Vanessa collects all the tapes, she learns that she can defeat Glitchtrap by following Tape Girl's instructions when he tries to escape the game. When Vanessa does this, it doesn't seem to work. She finds herself locked behind a door. Glitchtrap tells her to be quiet and retreats into the darkness. Vanessa has been infected by Glitchtrap. He's entered her mind and she's now a reluctant follower of him. When she returns to the game's lobby, there's a Glitchtrap plush next to her. The Help Wanted DLC, Curse of Dreadbear, continues the story. The Fazbear Entertainment virtual experience now has a Halloween DLC with brand new levels and secrets. The game's hub takes place at Fall Fest 1983, which is some sort of Halloween celebration that took place during the same year as Five Nights at Freddy's 4. In the lobby, if the player messes around with some of the buttons, Glitchtrap will appear on one of the hills in the distance. There's a rare Easter egg on the third night of Danger Keep Out, where the map will glitch and the monitor on the desk will start scanning for glitches, but none are found. This is likely because Glitchtrap has been hidden away in the plush form. In the Corn Maze level with Grim Foxy, if Vanessa collects all 4 keys, a glitchy key will spawn. When she obtains this, the cellar in the center of the map will open. Down in the cellar is the Vanny mask, which will be very important going forward. When Vanessa puts on the mask, she breathes heavily but eventually calms down. After completing the level, the Vanny mask is now at the prize counter. If Vanessa holds up the Glitchtrap plush and wears the Vanny mask, she talks to Glitchtrap, but we can only hear one side of the conversation. We can gather that Vanessa and Glitchtrap are planning something big. Now this is gonna sound weird, but the mobile version of Help Wanted is also canon. I'll explain why later, but just trust me for now. And just to make it clear, we have Help Wanted the short story, Help Wanted the game, and Help Wanted the mobile game. And these are all separate entries. Glitchtrap doesn't appear in the Help Wanted mobile lobby, since this takes place after he corrupted Vanessa and turned into his plush form. His plush form is also missing in this version, so it seems like after Curse of Dreadbear, he's fully escaped the game. We'll see Glitchtrap and his plush form later on in the series. Help Wanted Mobile also includes a bonus minigame, Princess Quest. Princess Quest is very important for later installments. It's expanded upon with 3 more arcades that determine the endings of certain games. In Security Breach's messages, it's mentioned that the Princess Quest 1 arcade originated from a mobile game, which is pretty clearly referenced to the mobile port of Help Wanted. I'll talk about Princess Quest more when we get to Security Breach and Help Wanted 2. After Help Wanted, Fazbear Entertainment begins construction on the Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex. The Pizzaplex is being built over Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place from the 6th game. The plan was to clean up the Pizza Place and turn it into a museum. Early on in the construction, some of the Pizzaplex animatronics and the Mimic Endo were delivered to the construction site. The Mimic's appearance has changed. It's described as a black burnt Endo with sharp claws and bent ears. The construction workers mistake the Mimic for a guitarist at first, likely as a reference to how the rabbit animatronics almost always play guitars. So it seems like the Mimic's ears are rabbit ears. A construction worker named Gil brought the Mimic down to the pizza place and planned on using him to disassemble the endoskeletons in the building. The Mimic instead starts ripping the heads and limbs off construction workers and kills almost the entire team. The only surviving worker, Danny, has concrete poured over the pizza place doorway, trapping the Mimic inside. Later, some teens break into the pizza place and the Mimic hunts them down. The Mimic showcases his body reconfiguring ability in these epilogues, like when he compresses himself down to fit in events and mascot costumes, and most notably when he turns into a spider. In the final epilogue, the last living teen, Lucia, springlocks the Mimic inside the Jester costume, which crushes him. Before the Mimic can self-repair, Lucia flips its deactivation switch. In the Tales from the Pizzaplex story, Cleithrophobia, the Pizzaplex is currently under construction. This takes place after the epilogues. While the Pizzaplex was a rough framework in those, by the time of this story it's now an empty building full with dormant games and rides. There's not much here that's important to the overarching story, but it does introduce the carousel, which we'll later see in VIP and Help Wanted 2. Also, for the record, I'll only be recapping books that have some sort of story significance. Sorry Ladley fans, but I won't be talking about him. The free interactive book, VIP, gives us the earliest look at the Pizzaplex. I won't be discussing the plot of VIP since it's not really important for the overarching story of the series, but there are some interesting details in this book. Again, VIP is free if you want to read it for yourself. I highly recommend it even if it doesn't have any major story implications. As I mentioned earlier, this is the earliest look at an open Pizzaplex, and it has some key differences. To start off, there's no daycare yet. Sorry daycare attendant fans, but don't worry, we'll get to them eventually. Monty Golf also doesn't exist. At this point in time, there's only Monty's Maze. It's mentioned that a recent data mine shows Fazbear Entertainment is considering repurposing Monty's Maze into something else. Later in Tales from the Pizzaplex in the games, we see it's been turned into Monty Golf. Montgomery Gator is also a new addition to the Pizzaplex. In the story, he doesn't even have a green room, only Glamrock Freddy, Chica, Bonnie, and Roxy do. Monty just has a cutout tucked between Chica and Bonnie's green rooms. As I mentioned earlier, there's a carousel in the story, which matches up with the carousel in Help Wanted 2, and is likely the same one from Cleithrophobia. There's also a Phaser Blast shooting range and a cupcake prize machine, both of which later appear in Help Wanted 2. In the Tales from the Pizzaplex story, the Storyteller, the board chairman of Fazbear Entertainment, Mr. Burrows, wants to replace the Pizzaplex's writing team with an AI program. Edwin Murray is still part of the company and fights against this idea, but ultimately, his concerns are ignored. The Storyteller is constructed as a giant tree in the Pizzaplex's atrium. Edwin hides in Monty Golf to get a better look at the Storyteller's construction, and he sees some workers carrying a giant white tiger head into the tree. This reminds him of David's white tiger plush. When the Storyteller is activated, it starts causing issues across the Pizzaplex, most notably with the animatronic personalities. Roxy was always somewhat mean, but when the Storyteller came online, she started verbally attacking anyone and anything around her. Monty, on the other hand, had more violent rampages and withdrew into a depressive silence afterwards. These personalities match with what we see in the games. Meanwhile, Chica and Freddy act a little differently. In this story, Glamrock Chica is described as a bib-wearing yellow chicken, similar to her original appearance. She's still well known for her love of food, but the Storyteller begins to change her. She begins to act more aggressive, and she goes from loving to snarky. Chica stopped caring about food and instead was obsessed with getting attention. She also demanded that Mr. Cupcake show her more deference. Speaking of which, Mr. Cupcake took on the personality of a vicious terrier, which could be a reference to his movie counterpart. This Glamrock Chica is very different from the one we see in the games. There's still some references to a yellow Glamrock Chica in Security Breach, with some yellow neon Chica signs and yellow strollers. It's not clear though if this is an entirely separate Chica or if she was just repainted. In the Bobby Duts Part 2, there's a damaged Glamrock Chica in the sewers, which might be the yellow Glamrock Chica. However, in Security Breach, there's some yellow paint visible in her hand, so maybe she was just repainted. It's also possible that Chica being yellow was a mistake from the writers, since in VIP, she resembles her game appearance. It's confusing, but considering her different personality, I assume this is meant to be a different Chica. On the other hand, Mr. Cupcake appears in Help Wanted 2 during the food prep kitchen level, and I assume it's supposed to be the same Cupcake from the story. Anyways, after the Storyteller comes online, Glamrock Freddy turns into a spoiled brat. He tries to drag a Freddy plush away from a little girl and cries afterward. Unlike Monty and Roxy, this doesn't match up with Freddy in the games, but this time there's a pretty logical explanation. Later in Security Breach, Freddy's rebooted in safe mode, which likely fixes personality issues that the Storyteller caused. Similar to the Glamrocks, the other Pizzaplex animatronics undergo some concerning changes. The Storyteller doesn't make the animatronics homicidal, but the changes are noticeable enough. Edwin decides to sneak into the Storyteller tree to figure out what's going on. Inside the tree is a giant white tiger head, with a green and blue eye. 4 arms also spread out from the tiger's neck. Edwin looks at the program that the Storyteller is running, and finds out that it's the Mimic 1 program. So it turns out that the Mimic 1 AI has been responsible for all the characters' personality changes. Edwin says that it was happening again, and we don't know exactly what he's referring to. But it's likely a reference to how the Mimic 1 program caused issues with the Mimic Endos, which is something we'll possibly see in Seeker of the Mimic. Mr. Burrows eventually catches Edwin sneaking into the Storyteller's tree, and he blames the Pizzaplex's glitches on him. Mr. Burrows overrides the security protocols and locks Edwin inside the tree, leaving him to suffocate. He later goes into the tree to make sure Edwin is dead, and unfortunately, he is. Edwin is surrounded by construction paper with strange stick figures and nonsensical symbols drawn on it. The words "I'm sorry" were plastered over it all, possibly Edwin expressing his guilt for creating the Mimic 1 program, or attacking the Mimic, or it could be him apologizing to his son David. This guy has a lot to be sorry about. When Mr. Burrows goes to leave the tree, he realizes that his security override has locked him inside. He tries messing with the Storyteller to get someone to realize that something is wrong. But even after ripping out the Storyteller's cords and arms and punching its muzzle, it remains functioning. The story ends with Mr. Burrows trapped inside the tree, and likely suffocating. In the following story, Tiger Rock, the main character Kai and his friends go to the Pizzaplex. The Storyteller is being taken down after all the issues it caused with the Pizzaplex and its animatronics, hence why we don't see it in the games. Kai enters a VR experience showcasing the future of the Pizzaplex in 10 years. Inside the VR experience, Kai meets Tigerrock, a white tiger with a blue and green eye. He's pretty obviously the Mimic 1 program, considering he looks just like the Storyteller. Tigerrock also says he loves learning. To quote him, "I'll learn anything I can. It's all in how you pay attention and take in what you see and hear." So if this wasn't obvious enough, this is the Mimic, since he learns by observing and then copying what he's learned. Tigerrock keeps grabbing and squeezing Kai's arm, so Kai flees. He tries to hide from him in Monty Golf, but Tigerrock finds him and asks if they're playing hide and seek. He also mentions that he learned how to play hide and seek a long time ago, which is a reference to the Epilogues. At one point in the Epilogues, the teens theorize that the Mimic witnessed some sort of hide and seek game. Back to the story, Kai eventually escapes the VR booth and returns home. However, he keeps seeing strange things like white animals with blue and green eyes, and he realizes he's still in the VR simulation. He escapes the VR booth for real this time and goes home. The story ends with Tigerrock randomly appearing at Kai's house and ripping off his arms. It's never made clear how exactly Tigerrock is in the real world, since the Mimic is likely still trapped in the sinkhole and Tigerrock was a digital character. Moving on, sometime after the Storyteller and Tigerrock, Glamrock Bonnie is killed by Montgomery Gator. Bonnie was seen exiting his green room. He roamed around the Pizzaplex and eventually ended up in Monty Golf. It seems like after he entered Monty Golf, he was destroyed by Montgomery Gator. Bonnie's body was moved to the room behind Bonnie Bowl, and Monty replaced him as the guitarist in the band. In Monty Golf, there's a gondola ride that tells a fake story about Bonnie leaving the band and handing his guitar down to Monty. This definitely seems to be a cover-up story Fazbear Entertainment created as a way to explain what happened to Bonnie. It also seems like Freddy and Bonnie were in a romantic relationship prior to his death. In Bonnie's green room at Bonnie Bowl, there's all sorts of Freddy items, and a poster from Freddy that says, "You and me, forever and ever. Love, Freddy." It's shown in Security Breach that Freddy cares about the other animatronics, but we've never seen it to this extent. With all of the Freddy items in Bonnie's room and the poster signed to Love Freddy, it definitely seems like they were together prior to Bonnie's death. Sometime around this, a young boy with hacker-like skills named Gregory was corrupted by Glitchtrap. We don't know how exactly this happened, but judging from some dialogue in the Scott Games website leading up to Security Breach's release, Glitchtrap and Vanessa specifically selected Gregory. It's likely that they corrupted Gregory because of his computer skills, which was needed for the next step in their plan. This part of the story is told across the retro CDs and the Tales from the Pizzaplex story GGY. Gregory, under the alias GGY, hacked the Pizzaplex and issued himself a modified play pass that functioned like a security badge. With this, Gregory could access any area in the Pizzaplex. He then unleashed a glitch into the Pizzaplex that went system-wide, and caused the animatronics to act eerie. When the Pizzaplex technicians were getting rid of the glitch, the source shifted, and instead of being a glitch, Gregory reprogrammed it as a set of subroutines in the animatronic systems that recreated the glitch. In the story, GGY, it's also mentioned by a girl named Crystal that the 4 Glamrocks have new lines of code. Embedded in this code are G's and Y's, which is Gregory's signature. This code is likely the same subroutines that Gregory programmed, and this is what allows him to control the Pizzaplex animatronics, and it seems to be what allows Vanny to control them later on. Gregory's school counselors eventually caught on to his activities. To keep them quiet, he lured them to the Pizzaplex and killed them. It's reported that one of them was found mangled by what looked like machinery. Gregory also has some of the highest scores in the Pizzaplex arcades, under the alias GGY. I'm not exactly sure why this matters, but it's an element we see in GGY and Security Breach. The retro CDs have more information regarding Glitchtrap's 2 minions, Gregory and Vanessa. After Help Wanted, Vanessa got a job at Fazbear Entertainment and had therapy sessions there. Meanwhile, Gregory has his therapy sessions at school with the previously mentioned counselors. All of these sessions are recorded and can be listened to in Security Breach by playing the retro CDs. They reveal Vanessa's previously mentioned backstory, where her dad manipulated her into lying in court. The retro CDs also reference the emails from Five Nights at Freddy's Special Delivery. However, that game's emails were cut short and most of the important details are just recapped here, so I'll stick solely to the Security Breach retro CDs. According to one of the therapists, Vanessa was having encrypted conversations with someone, and it seemed like she was being manipulated. It's also mentioned that Gregory was contacting someone, and it seemed like he was manipulating them. I think it's logical to conclude that Glitchtrap was using Gregory to manipulate Vanessa. The therapist also said that the person manipulating Vanessa was hacking into her personal files, and knows a lot about her. Glitchtrap likely learned about her troubled past with her father, and used this to manipulate her further. One of the therapists mentions that Vanessa bought fur to make a costume. This costume is a full version of the Vanny mask that was introduced in Curse of Dreadbear. When Vanessa is fully under Glitchtrap's influence, she becomes Vanny, and wears the costume to hunt down her victims. When the therapist starts asking about the costume, Vanessa says she can't talk about it, because he would always be watching. Vanessa is very obviously referring to Glitchtrap keeping an eye on her. Later it's mentioned that she's being transferred to another location, and this is likely the Pizzaplex. We'll talk more about her being hired at the Pizzaplex in a bit. The rest of the CDs focus on Gregory and how he hacked the Pizzaplex, which I already discussed. It's mentioned that the Pizzaplex technicians were convinced that Gregory had hacked their systems multiple times, but they had no actual proof. They did pull an image from the security footage of Gregory in the Pizzaplex, talking to someone or something with rabbit ears. I think this is Vanny. In a previous CD, we learned that Gregory was communicating with someone inside the Pizzaplex and manipulating them. I assume this was Vanessa, and Glitchtrap is continuing to manipulate her through Gregory. Across the therapy CDs, it's implied that Gregory had some sort of traumatic past, but it's revealed that he made it all up. He had great parents and a great childhood. It's never explained why he lied or if his parents are still alive. This hasn't been brought up in any installments following Security Breach, but I thought I should mention it in case it's important later on. Sometime around this, Cassie had her birthday at the Pizzaplex. Cassie is the daughter of a Pizzaplex technician and a huge fan of Roxanne Wolf. None of her friends showed up for her birthday party, but it seems like Gregory was there to cheer her up. It's not really clear when this happens, or if Gregory was under Glitchtrap's influence when he was friends with Cassie, but their friendship will be important later in the series. As I stated previously, Vanessa was transferred to the Pizzaplex as the security guard. It's mentioned that the recommendation for Vanessa came from the top, so Glitchtrap or Gregory likely hacked Phasma Entertainment to send the recommendation. Originally, the Pizzaplex wasn't going to hire Vanessa, but the email denying her the job had been marked for deletion. So it seems like once again, Glitchtrap tampered with Phasma Entertainment to ensure Vanessa got the security job. Using Glamrock Freddy, she cleared the path through the sinkhole and into the pizza place. It's never made clear why exactly she went to the sinkhole, but it seems like it was to reactivate the Mimic and turn him into a body for Glitchtrap. In one of Security Breach's non-canon endings, Glitchtrap's physical body can be found, named Burntrap. Burntrap looks like a much more damaged Springtrap, and his endo resembles the Mimic from the Epilogues. As I mentioned earlier, the Mimic is described as a black burnt endo with sharp claws and bent rabbit ears. All of these traits are visible on Burntrap. Similar to the Mimic, he also curls his arm and has the same type of hand the Mimic has in Ruin. So it seems like Vanessa reactivated the Mimic and turned him into a body for Glitchtrap. It's never explained where the corpse or suit came from. However, there's a Tales from the Pizzaplex story that ends with the main character being spring-locked in a Spring Bonnie suit, so that's a possible explanation. With the Pizzaplex now under Glitchtrap's influence thanks to Gregory, and Vanessa working as the security guard, Glitchtrap carried out multiple murders at the Pizzaplex. Vanessa also helped cover up some of Glitchtrap's activities. Sometime after she was hired, the prototype wind-up Music Men were stolen from a display case in Rockstar Row. Vanessa said in a message that there was no sign of a break-in, so it's likely that she stole them and made them hostile. The Music Men were then unleashed into the vents. There's a message mentioning loud clanging, banging, and scraping noises in the vents. These sounds were likely the Music Men crawling around, since that's where they're seen in Security Breach and Ruin. Another message is a security report written by Vanessa. Apparently a local police officer came by the Pizzaplex, responding to an emergency call from someone inside the building. Vanessa says it was just someone making a prank call and sends the officer away. I think this emergency call was likely from one of Glitchtrap and Vanny's victims. According to some messages, the Pizzaplex's staff project resulted in employees being fired. The staff project is likely referring to the creation of the staff bots, which are the robotic Pizzaplex employees seen across the games. The success of the staff project seems to have resulted in all the Pizzaplex's human workers, except Vanessa, being fired and replaced with staff bots. In the books like Tales from the Pizzaplex and VIP, the Pizzaplex employees are still all human, so it seems like they were all replaced after the events of the books. Security Breach's messages often reference a mandatory all-staff meeting, and it's possible that this is when all the human staff were fired. This is reinforced in certain emails, where employees mention they'll do something after the staff meeting, but in Security Breach, we see they never got a chance to do that. Sometime later, Gregory is somehow freed from Glitchtrap's influence, and the events of Security Breach occur. During a performance at the start of the game, Glamrock Freddy breaks down and is rebooted in safe mode. Being put in safe mode seems to fix all the issues that the Mimic 1 program and Glitchtrap caused with Freddy. After being rebooted, he finds Gregory hiding in a stomach hatch. He doesn't recognize Gregory's guest profile and doesn't know who he is. They see Vanessa searching the Pizzaplex and Gregory says that she's after him. Freddy agrees to help Gregory escape the Pizzaplex before it closes at 12 AM. After helping Freddy out of his room, Gregory climbs back into his stomach hatch, and Freddy takes him into the utility tunnels under the Pizzaplex. Freddy senses that Gregory's injured and takes him to a first aid station. Vanessa finds Freddy. She berates him for breaking down on stage and tells him to keep an eye out for Gregory. She leaves, and Gregory and Freddy continue through the utility tunnels. Freddy eventually runs out of power, and Gregory has to continue without him. Shortly afterwards, he's ambushed by all three of the hostile Glamrock animatronics and chased into a security office. Freddy gives him access to the security cameras, and he's able to find a safe way to the main lobby. However, he's too late. The front door closes and won't reopen until 6 AM. Using a complimentary entry pass, Gregory goes further into the Pizzaplex. He goes to the daycare to regroup with Freddy, and he meets the daycare attendant. As the name suggests, the daycare attendant watches over the daycare. The Tales from the Pizzaplex story, Bobby Dots Part 1, gives him some extra backstory. The sun was created as an old stage animatronic, and its gimmick was to turn evil when the lights went off. When it was reprogrammed into the daycare attendant, the darkness trigger couldn't be removed. Due to a flaw with the daycare lighting plan, the lights kept going out. These occasional blackouts created the moon side of the daycare attendant. When Gregory takes the daycare badge, the lights go out. The sun panics as the moon takes over.
Lights on! Lights on! I warned you! I warned you!
The daycare attendant's moon personality is now in control, and will hunt Gregory down. After finding the generators and turning the lights back on, the sun kicks him out of the daycare. Gregory hides in Freddy as the Glamrock search for him. As they flee the daycare, it becomes the end of the hour, meaning that all the power is diverted to the recharge stations, and the moon is free to roam the building. They get to a recharge station and watch as Vanny skips past them, but for some reason, Freddy's unable to see her. Freddy locates two possible escape routes, and the player can either choose to try to escape through the prize counter or the loading docks. Regardless of what they pick, Gregory's unable to escape and he's caught by Vanessa. He wakes up in Lost and Found and Vanessa appears on the monitors. Suddenly she changes into Vanny, and she slowly skips towards Lost and Found. As I previously mentioned, Vanny is Vanessa fully under Glitchtrap's control, and she wears a costume resembling the mask from Curse of Dreadbear. Using a screwdriver, Gregory opens a vent and escapes Vanny. When Gregory reaches Freddy, he tells him that something is wrong and he needs to get to Parts and Services. Freddy explains that the stage lift goes down to Parts and Service, so Gregory sets out to find the stage lift controls. After evading Roxanne Wolf, Gregory reaches the security office above Rockstar Row, but he isn't able to find the stage lift controls. All he finds is another security badge and a Showtime disc. Using this, they activate the stage lift and descend into Parts and Services. The moon ambushes them, and while Gregory is able to hide in a recharge station, the moon attacks Freddy and drags him into Parts and Services, and Gregory sets out to save him. He travels into the Endo warehouse, where he encounters the Glamrock Endos. He successfully obtains the security badge and enters Parts and Service. He sees Vanessa talking to Freddy, who now has his head detached. Vanessa suspects that Freddy's helping Gregory and threatens to scrap him. She then leaves to go find Gregory. Gregory reattaches Freddy's head and asks him if there's anything he could use to stop the other animatronics. Freddy mentions that a Phaz Cam or Phaser Blaster would temporarily stun the animatronics, so they return to Rockstar Row to get a party pass from Chica's room. If the player chooses to go to Monty Golf, they get the Phaz Cam, and later they can shatter Monty by knocking him off the catwalks. Gregory then takes his claws and upgrades Freddy with them, which allows him to smash through gates. If the player instead chooses to go to Phaser Blast, they have to play a round of laser tag to obtain the Phaser Blaster. At the Phaser Blast prize booth, there's also a vent that leads to Vanny's lair, which is important later for the true ending. Later on, Gregory shatters Chica by crushing her in the trash compactor. They both fall into the sewers, and Gregory steals Chica's voice box. Gregory can upgrade Freddy with Chica's voice box, which allows him to open gates. Regardless of whether you shatter Monty or Chica, the new abilities allow Freddy and Gregory to access the Roxy Raceway. Gregory makes a plan to hit Roxy with a cart to shatter her, so he can steal her special eyes. However, the driver's assistant head is missing and the only replacement is damaged. Gregory takes the head to the West Arcade, but when entering the office to repair the head, the arcade shuts down. DJ Music Man is accidentally put into his hostile bouncer mode, and he hunts down Gregory. He escapes the DJ and repairs the head. After the arcade is reset, DJ Music Man reverts back to his friendly personality. Now with the repaired driver assistant, Gregory crashes into Roxanne Wolf. Gregory steals her eyes, but Roxy gets back up and blindly chases after him. He once again escapes and upgrades Freddy with Roxy's eyes, which allows him to see certain objects through walls. By now, 6 AM has rolled around, and the moon is free one last time. When Freddy and Gregory reach the exit, Freddy says he can't leave because he'd run out of power. He tells Gregory goodbye, but Gregory realizes that if he leaves, more people will continue to go missing. He has a choice to either stay and investigate the Pizzaplex further, or leave. There are a lot of endings in Security Breach, but I'll just explain the true ending. To get the true ending, the player needs to play the Princess Quest arcades. The first arcade can be found in the back of the Roxy Salon. The arcade follows a princess exploring a dark castle while evading rabbit creatures. At one point, the player reaches a courtyard with 6 graves, representing William Afton's original 6 victims. Towards the end of the arcade, the princess obtains a purple rabbit key and uses it to open a doorway. At the end of the corridor is a giant amalgamation version of Glitchtrap. He says some strange dialogue that translates to "I always come back" and ensnares the princess, similar to how he corrupted Vanessa in the ending of Help Wanted. Princess Quest 2 can be found at the end of the West Arcade hallway where DJ Music Man chased Gregory. This arcade introduces a red man, who many people believe is Old Man Consequences from FNAF World and Ultimate Custom Night, or some sort of reference to him. At the end of the arcade, the old man tells the princess that her quest is over and she should rest. However, when the princess interacts with the glitch, she's transported to the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 office and the arcade abruptly ends. With Princess Quest 1 and 2 out of the way, the player now needs to confront Vanny. If they found her hideout earlier in the game, they have the option to surprise attack her at Phaser Blast. Freddy and Gregory are instead ambushed by staff bots, and Vanny commands them to disassemble Freddy. Gregory manages to escape into the Phaser Blast server room, evading Vanny and the other animatronics. As he's climbing up to the Phaser Blast catwalks, a severely injured Freddy contacts him. Freddy tells him to get to Vanny's hideout and turn the animatronics against her. However, if the player interacts with Princess Quest 3 instead, they can play the arcade. It picks up in the Five Nights at Freddy's office, where the previous arcade left off. Continuing into the hallway, the princess will have to fight more rabbit creatures before they reach the lobby from Help Wanted. If the princess goes to the right of the lobby, they continue further into the pizzeria. After fighting all the creatures and progressing through some conveyor belts, they collect the Glitchtrap plush from Help Wanted. The doorway to the left of the lobby leads to the cord maze from Curse of Dreadbear. The princess evades Grim Foxy, and at the center of the maze is the Vanny mask. With the Glitchtrap plush and the Vanny mask, the princess can open a chest behind the prize counter, and they're rewarded with the purple rabbit key. She can use this to open the main stage and enter a hallway. At the end of the hallway is the other side of the door that Vanessa was trapped behind in Help Wanted. When the princess opens the door, there's a scream. After completing the arcade, all of the staff bots deactivate, and Vanessa is freed from Glitchtrap's control. Gregory takes Freddy's still functioning head, and they leave the Pizzaplex with Vanessa. Now is also a good time to introduce the giant amalgamation of animatronics, known as the Blob, or according to developer notes, the Tangle. They're a very mysterious character who was introduced in the non-canon Burn Trap ending, and is located under the pizza place. In the epilogues, the pile of heads and limbs from the Mimic's victims is referred to as a Tangle, so it's possible it's possessed by the Mimic's victims, which would explain why it attacks Burn Trap in his non-canon ending. It also has parts from some of the original animatronics, and judging from the empty display cases in Rockstar Row, it seems like these parts were stolen from the Pizzaplex displays. Its main head is Funtime Freddy, which draws some parallels to Molten Freddy from the original games, who's an amalgamation of Funtime animatronics and similarly wears a Funtime Freddy mask. Overall, the Tangle is still a mystery. Hopefully future installments explain it more. After Security Breach, the Tangle tunneled out from the sinkhole and into the Pizzaplex. It wrecks everything, and while it seems like Phasma Entertainment planned on repairing and reopening the Pizzaplex, for reasons unknown it was abandoned. Phasma Entertainment likely gave up repairing the Pizzaplex because the Tangle was loose in the building. Sometime around this, Gregory and Vanessa returned to trap the Mimic. The Mimic is now freed from Glitchtrap's control and exited the charging pod. In Ruin, Burntrap's charging pod is empty and the vent leading out of his lair has a Burntrap handprint. So it seems like the Mimic woke up, still wearing the Burntrap appearance, and exited Burntrap's lair through the vent. Gregory went further down into the sinkhole, and using his Glamrock Freddy walkie-talkie, he lured the Mimic into a room. The room's exit was sealed up and had concrete poured over it. The Mimic tried to escape from this room through a vent, evident by the Burntrap handprint being seen on it, but it collapsed and seems to have cut off the Burntrap hand. Since in Ruin, the Mimic's right arm is damaged, and it has a new hand, which is different from the one in the Epilogues and Security Breach. After the Mimic was contained, Gregory and Vanessa used the Mex's security to keep it trapped. The Mex's security is some sort of old security machine, and they integrated it into the Pizzaplex's AR network. The AR network is some sort of digital realm that exists within the Pizzaplex, and can be accessed by putting on the security mask. Despite how surreal the AR network is, it can still affect the real world. Gregory and Vanessa set up security nodes in the AR network that lock down areas of the Pizzaplex. The Mex's entity was also implemented into the AR network. It's a glitchy rabbit creature that hunts down intruders in the AR network, and seems to have control over the animatronics. With all these new security features keeping the Mimic trapped, Gregory and Vanessa left the Pizzaplex. Gregory also left his Glamrock Freddy backpack outside of the Mimic's lair. In Help Wanted 2, the main character is trapped in the AR network's employee training simulation within the pizza place. It's never explained how they got here or who they are, but a lot of signs point to them being Cassie's dad. If you're interested, I recommend checking out my video about Cassie's dad. But just in case a future installment disproves the Cassie's dad theory, I'll just keep the protagonist's identity ambiguous. Most of the employee training levels in the game take place in the Pizzaplex or are themed around Sister Location and Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. Interestingly enough, the carousel repair levels feature the carousel from the books. The Cupcake Prize Machine and the Phaser Blast shooting range from VIP also appear in this game. Although it seems like the Carousel and Phaser Blast levels take place at Fall Fest, judging from there being the same props seen in the Curse of Dreadbear Fall Fest areas. You can also collect a Fall Fest 70s poster in the game, reinforcing the idea that these levels take place at Fall Fest. After completing enough of the employee training levels, the protagonist unlocks a Phas Wrench. Using this, they can power a panel in the Pizzaplex's lobby and open up the storage room. In the room is Princess Quest 4 and an AR inhibitor, and deactivating it allows the protagonist to take off the security mask that's been stuck to their face. Taking off the mask reveals the real pizza place. Now in the real world, the player can access levels in the ruined Pizzaplex. In the ruined salon level, Roxy needs the protagonist to repair her. Once the protagonist completes all the repairs, Roxy isn't satisfied and tells them to give her a mask. After putting the mask on her, Roxy tells the protagonist to get out, and she thinks about where Gregory could be. In the arts and crafts level, the player encounters the ruined version of the daycare attendant. After a security breach, the son has struggled more to fend off the moon side of the daycare attendant, something that will be continued in Ruin. Music Man has also suffered some injuries. He's lost a large chunk of his face, but other than that, he acts mostly the same. As the player progresses through the game, the digital Helpy assistant in the pizza place tells them there's gifts on the stage. Helpy resembles the Freddy and Friends on Tour art style. Opening the gifts rewards the player with the Fast Force action figures. If the player collects all the action figures and combines them, Glitchtrap is summoned. His hand emerges from a charging pod and Nightmare staff bots swarm the player. When the player recovers, they're now Maskbot, a character in Ruin who gives Cassie the security mask. This ending makes it seem like Glitchtrap sets up Maskbot delivering the mask, which is used to release the Mimic in Ruin. This further adds to the Mimic and Glitchtrap's connections. Glitchtrap directly helping the Mimic escape reinforces my idea that Glitchtrap is another Mimic 1 character. The game also has another ending involving Princess Quest. To get this ending, you need to find the memories across the game. They include Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, Golden Freddy, and the puppet. These represent Afton's original victims, the missing children and Charlie. After collecting all the memories, the player can collect a purple token and use it to play Princess Quest 4. The arcade starts out very similarly to the previous entries, but it takes a turn when the princess enters the room the protagonist is in. After the princess swipes at the protagonist, they're transported into the arcade. Now inside the castle, the player obtains the princess's sword and fights the rabbit creatures as they journey through the arcade. Eventually they reach the castle courtyard, where the memories are alongside their graves. The protagonist has to light the graves to continue, and if they light them in the order of Chica, Foxy, Freddy, Bonnie, Golden Freddy, and the puppet, a secret room opens up. Inside the hidden room is a Bonnie mask, and the protagonist says it looks familiar. This implies that the protagonist is the Bonnie bully from Five Nights at Freddy's 4, since they both had old Bonnie masks. Again, check out my video about Cassie's dad for some more theories about this. Continuing deeper into the castle, the protagonist encounters the old man from Princess Quest 2, and they give him the security mask in return for the Glitchtrap plush. A doorway opens to reveal the sister location elevator. When the protagonist enters the elevator, it ascends into a giant claw machine, with Vanny looking in at the player. The moon drops down and the protagonist hands over the Glitchtrap plushie, and it's delivered to Vanny. When Vanny collects the plush from the claw machine, it turns into Glitchtrap. Suddenly Vanny crushes Glitchtrap, abruptly killing him. Vanny waves at the player, and just like Glitchtrap in Help Wanted, she retreats into the darkness. This ending is all sorts of confusing. Is this Vanessa using the Vanny appearance? Or is Vanny now a digital entity similar to Glitchtrap? We don't know for certain. Heck, we don't even know if this ending is canon. Personally, I believe that the Maskbot ending and the Princess Quest 4 ending are both canon. The Maskbot ending directly leads into Ruin, and I find it hard to believe that an ending so clearly killing Glitchtrap would be non-canon. It's also worth noting that chronologically, this is the last time we see Glitchtrap. After Help Wanted 2, the events of the Security Breach Ruin DLC occurs. Some time has passed since Help Wanted 2, judging from how much more deteriorated the Glamrock animatronics are. Shortly before the events of the DLC, the Mimic contacts Cassie and impersonates Gregory to trick her into helping him escape. Believing that her friend is in danger, Cassie journeys into the now abandoned Mega Pizzaplex. In the main lobby, she finds a Roxy walkie-talkie, and using Gregory's walkie-talkie, the Mimic is able to communicate with Cassie. It tells her that he's trapped in the sinkhole under Roxy Raceway, and Cassie sets out to find him. As Cassie journeys further into the Pizzaplex, she encounters the now ruined Chica and the Tangle. The Tangle leaves when Cassie encounters it, so either chose not to harm her or didn't notice her. Shortly after this, Cassie is ambushed by Monty and falls into some water that takes her to Monty Golf, where she encounters Maskbot. As shown in the Help Wanted 2 ending, Maskbot gives Cassie the security mask, and using this she enters the AR network. She meets Helpy, whose eyes sometimes turn orange just like the Mimic's, so it seems like Helpy is being influenced by him. This might mean that Helpy was also the Mimic in Help Wanted 2. That's bad news for Cassie, since Helpy immediately pairs an occipital transponder, which hurts her. It's never stated what exactly this is, but some people think it's an AR implant. After traveling further into Monty Golf, the Mimic tells Cassie to deactivate the security nodes so he can escape. While deactivating the nodes in Monty Golf, the Mex's entity appears, and the Mimic tells Cassie to stay away from them. After narrowly avoiding Monty, the Mimic explains that Mexus was sending a distress signal to Monty. Later on, Cassie ends up in the daycare. It seems like after Help Wanted 2, the Moon has fully taken over the daycare attendant and has repressed the Sun into the AR network. The Sun tells Cassie that he needs to be rebooted. The Mimic instructs her to use the lights to hurt the Moon. After doing so, Cassie uses the Phas wrench to reboot the daycare attendant, which turns him into Eclipse. Luckily, Eclipse is friendly. He takes Cassie out of the daycare, and that's the last we see of him. Cassie then has to evade the Glamrock endos as she makes her way to the daycare theater and eventually reaches the Monty Golf catwalks. Later on, when she enters a portal, Mexus ambushes her. Before they can attack Cassie, the Mimic upgrades Helpy with a signal jammer that takes care of Mexus. However, shortly after this, Mexus returns at the bakery and activates an AR inhibitor. This kicks Cassie out of the AR network, but she eventually manages to deactivate it. After journeying through the server room, Cassie enters the salon. Just like in Help Wanted 2, Roxy is still sitting there, wondering where Gregory could be. Roxy overhears Cassie, but before she can do anything, she's distracted by the real Gregory trying to contact Cassie. Roxy chases after his voice, but the Mimic tells Cassie not to worry and says he's found a place to hide. Cassie works on deactivating the security node so she can follow Roxy. After deactivating all the child nodes connected to the security node, Chica walks into one of the salon's bathrooms and collapses onto the floor. If the player collected the voice box from the Feeding Frenzy arcade, Cassie will repair Chica.
That should do it.
Chica will remain here for the rest of the DLC, and it's currently unclear if she's dead or temporarily off. Throughout the DLC, it's shown that Chica sometimes deactivates before later recovering, and this might just be one of those cases. After dealing with the salon security node, Cassie follows Roxy into the unfinished Foxy log ride. This was previously seen in the Vanny Network's AR employee training levels. It looks like in the real world it was never opened due to safety concerns. However, Cassie says it was fun, which is somewhat contradictory. It's possible that since Cassie's dad was a Pizzaplex technician, she got to ride it early before it was abandoned. After traveling further into the log ride, Monty appears, and Cassie will have to jump across debris to avoid falling into the water with Monty. Cassie powers up a conduit, and a stray cord from it electrocutes the water. This electrocutes Monty. He screams and flails as he sinks below the water. Ironically enough, the object that electrocuted the water was a Glamrock Bonnie neon sign. Quite a fitting way for Monty to die. Continuing further, Cassie finally reaches the Roxy Raceway. She isn't getting a signal from the Mimic, so she goes further in. She gets jump-scared by a staff bot, and there's a rare chance that the real Gregory will contact Cassie, but he's unable to warn her that she's being tricked. After this, Cassie runs into Roxy, and has to lure her around the raceway using Helpy's copy of Gregory's voice. As Cassie is leaving the raceway, Roxy grabs her, but when she realizes Cassie isn't Gregory, she lets her go. Cassie finally gets the Mimic signal. When she asks what happened to the Pizzaplex, it responds by saying that something tunneled out and wrecked everything, that something being the Tangle. The Mimic once again tells Cassie that he's trapped in the sinkhole under the raceway, and Helpy tells her where the remaining security nodes are. Following Helpy's instructions, Cassie goes to Bonnie Bowl, and deactivates the security node while evading the mini music men. If the player deactivated every wet floor bot, they can access the room behind Bonnie Bowl, where Glamrock Bonnie's body is. Interestingly enough, his eyes are glowing until the player deactivates the wet floor bots surrounding him, so it seems like he might have been alive all this time. After traveling through an AR tunnel, Cassie enters Phaser Blast. Once she deactivates the final security node, she finds Glamrock Freddy's body. With Freddy's head gone, his body has now gone rogue and it chases her, but she eventually manages to escape. Now with all the security nodes deactivated, Cassie returns to the raceway. The Mimic informs her that Roxy is the final security node and needs to be deactivated. In a heartbreaking moment, Cassie reluctantly deactivates Roxy. The door to the sinkhole opens. Cassie enters the old elevator and descends into the depths. Cassie eventually ends up in the pizza place's basement, where Candy Cadet is. Cassie travels deeper into the pizza place, finding Burntrap's lair and eventually reaching the Mimic's lair. Cassie enters the AR network and deactivates the Mex's security, which opens the door to the Mimic's lair, but it's covered with concrete. She powers up a forklift to break the concrete and enters the Mimic's lair.
You saved me! You saved me. Gregory? I'm Gregory. You're not Gregory. What are you? Gregory.
Cassie! Get out of here! Run!
Cassie flees the Mimic and is contacted by the real Gregory, who tells her to follow his instructions to escape. The Mimic jumps down and chases Cassie. Ruin has 3 endings. The normal ending has Cassie escaping in an elevator. The Mimic tries to grab her, but its arm is caught in the elevator door and cut off. As the elevator ascends, Gregory explains that the Mimic tricked her into deactivating the mech's security so it could escape. The elevator speaker suddenly rings, and Gregory says that while this isn't her fault, they can't risk being followed. The elevator is suddenly dropped, and the DLC ends with it crashing, and Cassie's fate is left unclear. After the credits, Roxy calls out for her.
Cassie.
Some people think that the Mimic dropped the elevator, since the speaker rings before Gregory tells Cassie they can't be followed, possibly meaning that the Mimic interrupted him and copied him again before dropping the elevator. Some people also think that Roxy's credits voice line is the Mimic copying her, but I'm still optimistic that she survived. There's also another ending where during the chase, Cassie approaches an old Fredbear cutout and puts on the mask. Cassie is transported to a scene featuring Gregory and Helpy sitting on a hill with Vanessa in the background. Gregory says that he's okay and found a place to hide, as balloons rise into the sky. Cassie breathes heavily and the DLC ends. This ending is likely the security mask making up some sort of happy scenario for Cassie before the Mimic kills her. The third and most different ending is the Scooper ending. Throughout the Pizzaplex there are security stations, and some of them have hidden cameras that open doors in the sinkhole. The player needs to find all 4 of them to activate the Scooper ending. When Cassie finds the Mimic, he's now wearing a mascot costume. It appears to be an amalgamation of other suits that has some traits resembling Gregory. Towards the end of the chase, the player can walk through the doors they opened on the cameras and escape the Mimic. Now safely inside a room, Cassie presses a button. The Mimic lunges towards Cassie and bangs on the window between them. Before he can break the window, he's grabbed by the scooper and dragged away. When the fog clears, the mascot costume is now empty and the door is wide open, implying that the Mimic has escaped. It's never made clear if the scooper in this ending is supposed to be the same scooper from Sister Location. Their designs are very different, but it could have just been redesigned by Steelwool. Similar to Help Wanted 2, we still haven't learned which ending is canon, but I think it's the elevator ending since it's the only ending with a post-credits voice line. As always, this is where the Five Nights at Freddy's story ends for now. While the newer storyline isn't perfect, I'd consider Ruin, Tales from the Pizzaplex, and Help Wanted 2 to be a much more comprehensible story than what we got in Security Breach. I'm hoping that going forward, the story is presented more clearly like it was in Ruin. Secret of the Mimic is also a great opportunity to clear up the Mimic's origins for people who haven't read the books. I hope it delivers in that aspect and properly sets up the Mimic. With Steelwool's clear improvement in Ruin and Help Wanted 2, I can't wait to see what's in store for this game. If you enjoyed this video, please follow me on Twitter, join our Discord, and subscribe for future videos. Please consider buying a super thanks on this channel to support us and help fund future content like our upcoming game. You can also donate to us on our Ko-Fi page. Also, thank you all so much for 5,000 subscribers. I wanted to make this video a special one to celebrate this milestone, and I really hope it was worth the wait. Now we have 6,000 subscribers, and we have something special planned for that as well. In the meantime, check out some of our other videos.